3D printing human anatomy, how close are we? And to guide us on this, we have with us Ms. Firoza Kothari. A BTech in biotechnology engineering, Firoza started her journey to provide patient-specific medical solutions and one day end the organ donation problem by creating live organs out of patient stem cells. With that aspiration, she gave birth to Anatomies 3D. She, along with her team, was the first to execute soft tissue anatomical models in India through pediatric cardiology, partial amputee prosthetic hand, first kidney tumor case in India, and the model for tongue cancer was the first in the world. Amongst her many credentials, she was also chosen by Forbes Asia 30 Under 30 Science and Healthcare 2020. Being a co-founder and CTO of Anatomies 3D, 27-year-old Firoza, along with her team, has successfully added 700 plus case studies. Her multidisciplinary expertise prevails in converting 2D DICOM, CT, MRI, echo scans to 3D printed anatomical replicas, medical devices, and allied products using various combinations of hardware and software across multiple medical specializations. Anatomies 3D has played a vital role in creating the market for 3D printing in the medical industry in India and are pioneers for the same. For the convenience of everyone, we would be happy to take the questions at the end. Now, without taking any more time, I would request Ms. Kothari to please take over from here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Astha, for introducing me. And I'd just like to take a small detour before we start with the presentation, just by mentioning something that is not mentioned on these paragraphs. It is basically what I like to do in my free time. And since we do have some amount of free time available for everyone now, so I'd just like to speak a little bit about that. Basically, in my free time, I like to dance, I like to read some books, and I'm very fascinated by some good cinema. One of the things that most intrigues me are superhero movies or sci-fi movies, something like Thor or Iron Man or Marvel or something like that. But basically, the point I'm trying to draw from here is that no matter how much these superheroes inspire us, they are in no way comparable to the kind of superheroes that y'all are, the doctors are, in today's time, in such testing times. So be it doctors, be it nurses, be it police officials, delivery guys, caregivers, bank officials, no matter who, basically anyone and everyone who is out there so that the people can be safe at home. I consider you guys as the real superheroes, and just wanted to give you all a huge round of applause, and I urge you all also to do that same thing for the others. It gives me immense pleasure to be speaking about a topic that is very close to my heart in front of you all. And I'm very proud that I'm getting an opportunity to do this. So thank you, Dr. Reddy's, for allowing me to speak on this topic and reaching out. So on that note, I'm just going to start the presentation. And for that convenience, I'm just going to stop my video so that the focus can be on the presentation itself. Yeah. So talking about the topic at hand that we have today, which is, just a second. Yeah, which is 3D printing human anatomy and how close are we? Even though I can talk on this topic for hours together, I'm going to keep this discussion short and eventually interactive. But this question is really important to answer because it's imperative that we understand the differences between the situations and what the technology is capable of offering. First thing that we need to understand is what is our reality? What is it that we have achieved in the past? And what is it that we are capable of achieving or doing in the future? Second thing is the possibility. What it means is basically what we know today. Because of that, what is it that we can aim to achieve tomorrow? The third thing is aspiration. What is our eventual goal that we can dare to see with our innovative and dreamy eyes? So what I've done is, of course, drawing parallels from my love for superhero movies, I've segregated this talk into the following segments. The first thing is a backstory. You need to know the background of your characters, right? So basically, this is where we are setting the foundation. 3D printing, how it came into existence, how was it identified, and how it became a useful tool in medicine. Second thing is the main drama of the story, the content of the story, understanding why the movie is being made. So, for example, in our case, it is identifying the problems, evaluating and finding the right solutions so that we can overcome the problem using our current capabilities. When we move into the possibilities, I can only relate it to open-ended climax. Here you're wondering, based on everything that you know from the backstory and the main drama, how the movie is going to end. But it doesn't really end, does it? It just throws more information at you in the form of new innovations and knowledge extension. Announcing the next thing is announcing the sequel. This is where things get really interesting. You wonder about the possibilities. Say, for example, like quite a stupid example, but in Bahubali, you're wondering always कि काटापा ने बाहुबली को क्यों मारा? But jokes aside, you wonder about whether this technology has the possibility to revolutionize the way and the healthcare industry as we know it. So let's start with the backstory first. What is 3D printing? So this is just a quick video that I would like to show you all about the process of 3D printing, just one of the few technologies. But basically 3D printing is a 30-year-old technology invented in the early 1980s. I can understand that this may come as a shock to people, since back then even 2D printers were not a real household talk. Neither was the internet as explosive as it is today. 3D printing is a technology in which a material is deposited one above the other, layer by layer, on the basis of the design instruction that you have given it. There are different types of 3D printers, and you can categorize them based on the printing technique, material used, its final application, etc. In medicine, 3D printing has been applied in the early 2000s when the technology was first used to make dental implants, custom prosthetics, CAD-CAM, as you may have heard of it. In fact, the very first case in India is also almost 15 years old. Since then, the medical applications for 3D printing have evolved considerably. CT and MRI scans are basically the input data that we work from and from where the patient anatomy is extracted. This data is then evaluated on the basis of whether or not we can extract the necessary data, and that is important for the surgery. Once approved, our design team works on the 3D model and gets it verified from the medical team. Only and only after this step does the file go in for 3D printing. Of course, this process may vary a little based on the application, but this is a general sense of the process flow that I'm talking about. So this brings us to our main story, which is the applications. Where all is it utilized? So I have segregated these applications into two categories. First is the specializations, which could be any of these following segments. Of course, this list is not exhaustive as we learn new things every day, and you never know when a new application is developed for a new specialization. And I will be briefly talking about some of these specializations in the next forward slides. Second is the products. You can make any of these below products for the specializations that are mentioned. Again, I will be explaining these in examples. And I will also quickly introduce a topic of bioprinting, since today we are going to be talking about how close we actually are to making 3D printed organs. So I'll move to the first example. This is of anatomical models. These are not in any particular specialization cases. It's chosen at random as it would take up too much time to discuss each specialization in depth. But of course, in the Q&A session, please feel free to ask me any specific queries that you might have. So the first example that I'd like to share is that of a surgical planning done with the help of a 3D printed model for an infant who had a hole in the heart and also had a DORV. DORV is basically double outlet right ventricle, where both the greater arteries open into the right ventricle for the patient. Back in 2015, when this child was about 6 months old, he had been rejected for surgery at multiple places. But finally, the parents reached this last medical team who was their last ray of hope. Again, these doctors also believed that a surgical correction would not be easy for this patient and that his best bet was to survive in this existing condition. But the medical team still wanted to give technology a chance. They had read up about 3D printing technology and seen it in conferences abroad, but no one in India had really used this technology in soft tissues before. Coincidentally, this was also the same time when I had started exploring 3D printing and its adventures while I was approached by the medical team to take this case up. We really had loads of discussions about the case, understood what parameters are needed to extract good quality data. And once we had all of this in place, this is where my design procedure began. With input from the medical team, we perfected the design and 3D printed the model. After studying this model, the medical team not only realized that surgery is possible, but also chose to opt for the most difficult yet best corrective procedure for that patient, which would ensure better quality of life for that 6-month-old kid as he grows up. It gives me immense pleasure to say that the child recovered quickly and is growing well, leading a good life. So what I'd like to highlight here is that the model played a very important role in decision making and pre-planning of the surgery, to choose whether or not to go in for surgery, and if yes, what would be the corrective plan to do it. So this can also be applied for other specializations, as I mentioned earlier. These are just some of the few cases that again I'm showing majorly in soft tissue planning. The leftmost one is the entire neck and chest region infected by tumor. You can see the lungs in transparent, tumor in orangish brown, arteries in red, veins in blue, muscles, trachea, esophagus, etc. This model was very important for the medical team to decide how to resect the tumor without damaging the vasculature. They had about a 30-second window in the OT when they had to actually perform the surgery. So it was very important for them to simulate the surgery on the model. The second case that you are seeing is that of a kidney tumor. It was important to understand here if the tumor was in contact with the ureter. If yes, then by how much? So with the help of this model, they chose to go for a partial nephrectomy instead of a complete nephrectomy, thereby preserving the other half. The third case that you're seeing, that is a third right model, is that of a liver, which is very useful in planning of transplants or tumor resections. The vasculature can be delineated very perfectly and can give a very nice three-dimensional perspective. So again, the highlights over here become decision-making and pre-planning. So I move on to the next example. This is a case of osteotomy guides in ortho-oncology, wherein the patient had a huge tumor in the pelvis. This young 20-year-old lady was suffering from immense pain because of the weight on her hip, extreme medication considering her condition, and of course, along with some social issues. The highly well-experienced team of doctors wanted to ensure that complete resection of this tumor in the first go is possible. Considering the size and the location of the tumor, it would have been a tedious task to locate the resection planes, ensuring complete accurate removal. Another situation could have been that they would have cut off more bone than necessary. Both situations are tricky, and it would have been ideal if they could come up with some control over the outcome. Hence, with the help of 3D designing and 3D printing cutting jigs, as you can see from this video, it was possible to plan complex angulated resection planes, which made the procedure very easy for the medical team because it reduced their OT time, it reduced the blood loss of the patient, anesthesia time, and more so forward. The patient recovered quickly, and I still remember her smile a few days later when I saw her going in for a follow-up appointment. So what I'd like to highlight here is the resection plane accuracy can be achieved very well, and it helps in saving precious time of everyone involved. Third example is that of custom titanium implants. Please don't worry, that first skull image is not of just one patient. These are a lot of cases that we've put in just combined for easy showcasing of the data. But what I'm trying to say is that gone are the days when the only option we had was similar to the quote that we've all heard, one size fits all. We know this is not true. And being from the medical background, I'm sure you all agree that it can have some serious long-term effects if the implants do not fit the patient correctly. So with the aim of providing better quality of life to the patient and avoiding the breakage or damage of an ill-fitting implant leading to a revision surgery, 3D printing titanium customized medical implants are here to fill the gap where necessary. As you can see from these cases, the highlights are that the design can be made matching and mirroring patient anatomy, giving the best possible fit and a truly personalized solution for them. Now, these implants were majorly in titanium. But next is a very interesting concept which involves materials that can resorb into the body, eventually leading to your own cells taking over in that shape. So, osteointegration. Now, these are combinations of biomaterials such as hydroxyapatite, calcium, etc. Animal trials have been performed and huge success has been seen over there. Some human trials have also been performed, but I guess we can look at a couple of more years to see that these will be commercially available in the market. Another very interesting application is the ability to quickly and accurately fabricate prosthetics and orthotics. Conventional procedures are time consuming and labor intensive. So with the help of quick scanning techniques and 3D design softwares, it is possible to make custom fitting prostheses, which are good looking, lightweight, comfortable to use, and also provide confidence to the patient to roam around socially. You will see examples over here of lower limb prosthesis, upper limb prosthesis, cranial helmets which are used for craniosynostosis pediatric neurosurgery, and you will also see a lot of casts which are hand cast, leg cast, or scoliosis splints. Now I'd like to move on to bioprinting, which is a slightly different technology. It is something that keeps me up at night many a times because as a biotech engineer, I really hope to work on it someday. And as was introduced by Astha, this is basically why I started Anatomize 3D. Bioprinting technology uses similar types of 3D printers, but instead of plastics or metals, it uses stem cells along with biomaterials. Now, these biomaterials, when put together, they make a scaffold or a shape with the help of this 3D printer. And these are then seeded with stem cells, given the right growth factors, and then they differentiate into the cell type that you want it to. A lot of the work is very preliminary and can be done in small sizes as of today. We have seen success in assembling 3D heterogeneous layer of cells, which are basically a combination of different types of cells in three-dimensional layers, which can react or perform similar to what a human tissue can, and it lasts much longer than the usual homogeneous or single layer of cells that are used in current tissue engineering labs. These constructs currently being used in testing of pharmaceutical drugs as well. So what it does is it allows for trials to be done on personalized cells, allowing for quicker evaluation of success and failures and faster time to market for the product, also reducing the risk involved in animal and human trials. Some of the other examples are that of skin being printed, and this what you're seeing is on the hand, but there's also work being done on printing the skin directly onto the patient's body. Research is also going on being able to grow patient-specific neurons. This could help figure out the mysteries of the human brain and bring us one step closer to understanding, well, ourselves. So now this brings me to our next topic, which is the open-ended climax, which was basically the possibilities. With the knowledge that we have today, we know that we will be able to successfully make slightly larger constructs or tissue assemblies if we can just solve some basic hindrances. For example, the one thing that comes to the top of my head is how can we manage continuous oxygen supply to these cells? If we are able to achieve this, then I just have one question for you all. Do you think we can achieve 3D printing of live organs in a lab? If yes, then we may not need organ donors someday, even if it means that we have to wait for the next 15 to 20 years to achieve this feat. Let's all take a second and understand what a big achievement this could be for us. So throwing that in outside, it pushes me towards my sequel. If any of y'all have seen the last few Avenger movies by Marvel, y'all would be familiar with this character called Vision. This character has been shown to be bioprinted, and its consciousness is an AI program learning from his creators and the people around him. So I guess now you understand why I'm so fascinated by sci-fi movies or superhero movies. Vision is ironically very cool, and he's also the vision that we should all be dreaming of and aspire of. So yes, that basically brings me to the end of my presentation. I will now open this webinar for questions. But before that, I'd just like to say that all of this work would not have been possible without out of the box thinkers and visionary doctors like yourselves approaching the industry for such out of the box solutions. You guys are the ones who utilize these products and give it purpose. We are probably just the working elves supporting you and assisting you to make your very, very difficult job slightly easier. I urge you all to get in touch with the community of medical 3D printing if you all know, or please feel free to get in touch with me as well. My contact is mentioned here on this screen, and I would love to discuss new innovative ideas with you, work on research projects, or just help you all in personalizing your surgeries. Thank you so much for listening, and now I will just open this up for Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Firoza. So we have few questions. So the first one I'll read for you. What is the application of 3D printing designing in medical field?
Yeah, so I'll just quickly go back to the slide that I had shown. 3D printing in medical field are basically all of these examples that I was talking about. The first one would be anatomical models, wherein you are talking about patient data. So you are able to convert the CT and MRI scans of the patients into a model that you can try on, practice on, or plan your surgery on. The second one is the implants, which you can make customized implants in titanium. Third one is that of cutting and drilling guides. You can actually plan your osteotomy on the software. You can decide what planes and cuts you want to do. And that can be replicated in the OT because you'll have the jig on the patient in the OT. Last but not the least, of course, in current scenario is custom orthotics and prosthetics. You can make upper limbs, you can make lower limbs, you can make cranial helmets and splints for the hands and for scoliosis braces. So yeah, these are some of the applications.
Okay, thank you. So the next one is, what are the possibilities in this field for next, say, 5 to 10 years?
Right. So considering as of today, the knowledge that we have, in the next 5 years, I would say that we will be able to have biomaterials. Biomaterials, which are basically the resorbable implants that I was talking about. If I were to go in detail for this, we are able to create these biomaterials in a certain shape. You can seed them with certain factors which can allow for more osseointegration. And when fit into the patient's bone, it can actually allow for the bone cells to grow over each other. And over a period of time, this resorbs into the body. So at the end of the day, what you're left with is your own body cells. This along with skin tissue. I believe these are the two major areas where in the next 5 years we will see we'll see them commercially available. In terms of research, there's also a lot of research going on for kidney, for liver, for corneas, for neural cells. But I do not believe that in the next 5 years we will see them come out commercially. So yeah, this is where I see the projection and the future of 3D printing as of now.
Okay. So how can students explore this field? Like what should be the basic qualification to get into this field?
That's actually a very nice question. 3D printing in general is a combination of so many specializations or so many multidisciplinary education fields. You have mechanical engineers, you have industrial designers, you have electrical engineers, biomedical engineers, biotech engineers, dentists, doctors, MBBS graduates. You have a combination of so many of these. In fact, even BSc graduates, basically someone who has knowledge about anatomy or someone who has interest in designing 3D models. These are the basic two kinds of people that as of today are more than welcome into joining medical 3D printing. Because if you know one thing, you can be taught the rest. And that's what we aim at Anatomize, wherein we take different people from different education backgrounds and we train them for the rest, what is remaining. And what this also helps with, it brings a very different perspective from different education backgrounds. If we have all of them in-house, most of our time just goes in brainstorming new ideas, new innovative ideas. And it's very challenging and it's very exciting to do that.
Okay, great. So do you also take interns?
Yes, we do take in turns.
Okay, all right. So the next one comes, what are the 3 cases which you felt very fulfilling by helping the patients in dire need?
Wow. I have put quite an amount of thought on this question, but the first ever case that I mentioned was of this. I can show the video again. Was of this heart model, this 6-month-old child. This was our first case, and we were also learning during that time, and everyone was actually just doing trial and error, be it the medical team to understand whether what we're doing is right or not. When this case went successful, that was probably one of the happiest days I remember in my memory. So being able to help these kids who probably don't have too many options in the country, and so this is one case that I can mention. The second case was something that I've not shown over here, but they were spine jigs, which we had made, and that was the first case that we had done that happened in India as well, wherein you make guides for allowing the surgeons to put their K wires in that particular direction, in that angle itself. So we were very scared whether that would also work. Again, it was a first over here. So we were very scared whether that would work, but that also worked very well. And again, one of the most fulfilling cases that we've worked on. And the third one was the tumor case, the neck and chest case that you are seeing over here. This took us almost 3 days to design and 5 days to 3D print. No one has done such a case earlier with such complex anatomies like the heart, the lung, the tumor, arteries, veins, muscles. We had to work on almost 3 different MRI scans, CT scans, club all of those designs together. And again, here we were very scared whether are we giving out accurate data. But when this case also went very successfully, it was again quite a proud moment for us at that time.
Okay, so Mr. Ravi Gupta wants to know what material are you using for biocompatible bones?
Right. So from here, the biocompatible bones that I have shown, this is more of a global scenario that I have put in over here. All of these cases are not just anatomized cases, they are all global cases happening across the world, and a cumulative, the efforts that are being put by the industry cumulatively. But in my knowledge, these materials are hydroxyapatite, calcium, phosphorus, and some osteoblasts. So this is my understanding of what I've been able to read online.
Okay, okay. So are these facilities available in our country to common man? That is how expensive it will be if they are available.
Right. So one of the in the earlier slides, I had mentioned that the 3D printers are varied. You have different types of 3D printers and different types of materials. So you end up choosing the 3D printer and the material based on your application. So say for example, if your application is to make simple anatomical models, which are bone models, then a small FDM printer, the one that I showed in this video, just a second. Yeah, the one that I showed in this video will also suffice. Now, a 3D printer like this would cost anywhere between 50,000 to 6 to 7 lakhs. Of course, accuracy and all, a lot of that also matters. So if we are dealing with medical models, it's always ideal to work with someone who has knowledge of design as well as 3D printing, because they can guide you with the right kinds of materials and printers. But again, just to give you an example, something as small as a bone model can be very easily printed in this printer. But something as complex as the neck and chest model that I showed, that requires a very complex industrial printer, which might not be easily available apart from the service bureaus who are providing the services. But just as a rule of thumb, in anything medical, I would always suggest go with someone who knows both the design and the printing together, because they will be able to consult in a much better way what technologies or what materials should be used.
Okay. So Mr. Deepak Gupta wants to know, are there any hospitals in India using this 3D printing technique?
Yes, of course. If I may just clarify, there are two ways of answering this question. One is whether they have 3D printing in-house, or one is whether they're using services like bureaus, from bureaus like ours. So if we were to look at 3D printing in-house, yes, you have AIIMS Hospital, Delhi, You have Max Hospital Delhi, where we've set up our own 3D printers and designers. You have AIMS Kochi. Then you have some hospitals in Pune, in Bangalore also, who have started utilizing 3D printers in-house. So yes, you do have some hospitals with low-cost printers in-house who are making base level models over there. And when it comes to another question, I mean, to answering it differently, whether just doctors in general in India are utilizing this technology, yes. So as I mentioned, in India, the simple base case, the first ever case was 15 years ago. And in the last 5 years, since we started off with soft tissue model, Anatomize started with soft tissue modeling, there's been a tremendous growth in soft tissue utilization or 3D printing as well. So yes, there are loads of doctors utilizing it in India, say maybe from us or other service bureaus, and it's actually seeing a lot of innovation here as compared to abroad. So yeah, many innovative minds over here.
Okay, so the next one comes, what advances we expect in the field of orthopedic and aesthetic dermatology?
Orthopedic and aesthetic dermatology. Okay, so I'll split the question. In terms of orthopedics, as I mentioned, that there is the bone cement, sorry, not the bone cement, the resorbable materials that we are seeing. Apart from that, we are also seeing, apart from resorbable material, we are also seeing a huge boom in titanium custom implants. I'll quickly go to that as well. Yeah. If you will see these custom implants, it would have been very difficult in cases of tumor or in cases of ill-fitting implants to be able to come up with something like a one-time solution for that patient. So in terms of orthopedics, we are seeing advances more in terms of the material and in terms of the design. So in material, you will see more resorbable materials, or you will see materials which can allow for more osteointegration. And in terms of design, you will see more creative designs which will be patient specific and that can serve the purpose for that patient's anatomy. In terms of dermatology, I would like to accept over here that I do not have too much knowledge about it, because in our current work that we don't do a lot of dermatology related work. But from what we've been seeing and the sources and my connects that I have abroad who are working on bioprinting, they are working on majorly skin related products. So basically they're trying to replicate the different layers of the skin. They're starting off with only the first 2 to 3 layers and then going on to the rest. Majorly for utilization of testing of drugs and cosmetics, but also to some level of grafts, wherein they can, instead of using the body grafts or taking skin from some other part of the body, if they can make the skin from the patient's own stem cells and replace the part which needs to be replaced with these 3D bioprinted grafts. So again, I'm happy to look out for answers, do some research and write back to you if you can just drop in your email ID or contact details. And I'm happy to forward more information to you, but as of now, my knowledge on that is quite limited.
Okay, so the next one comes, can we replace dental implants with 3D printed customized implants?
3D printing customized implants depends if you're talking about caps and crowns or if you're talking about the actual abutments. The actual abutments, what you have right now, are quite good. They come across in very different sizes. So I would not say that you would require a 3D printed abutment in that case. But if you'll have a look at this skull implant that we have over here, the abutments this was a tumor case, it was an oncology case, wherein they had to resect the entire tumor and then replace it with another material or another implant. So in cases like this, where your abutment is in combination with your implant, yes. But if we are talking about standalone abutments, then no, I would not suggest, it's not necessary. If you want it, the option is available, but it's just not necessary. So, and if not abutments, if we are talking about caps and crowns or prosthodontics, then 3D printing serves in two possibilities. First one is that it can make the design of your caps and crowns. You can 3D print it in wax and then you can cast it in the material of your choice, be it ceramic, be it metal, whatever you generally use. Or second one is there are some companies who are doing research on having materials directly 3D printed with the caps and crowns. It has still not come out very largely commercially yet. People are still using the wax pattern, 3D printing of wax and then casting it. But yes, I'm sure in the near future that will get that will get commoditized as well.
Okay. So the next one is, this is from Mr. Syed Qureshi. He wants to know what would be the body's immune response to 3D implants?
Right. So if you're talking about titanium, we all know that titanium is already a biocompatible material. It does not react in the body. So this titanium that we are utilizing over here is also medical grade titanium. So there's absolutely no difference in the materials that you're using as opposed to your traditional implants. It's basically the custom fit and the personalization that you are doing over there. So if there are any side effects with your traditional titanium implants, you will see similar side effects with this. But as of now, we've not noted down any side effects as such of this material. I mean, we've not seen anything happen.
Okay. Mr. Deepak Gupta wants to know how long and effective these 3D printed implants are, and what is the life of 3D implant?
Again, as I said, the material is the same. So the life of the material will be similar to what the life of the material of your traditional implants are. But yes, I would like to raise one very important point over here, that design is one of the major, the differentiating factor that will decide on how potent or not potent, how strong or mechanically strong the implant is going to be. So if you do not design the implant correctly, if you do not check for the stresses of the implant with respect to your bone correctly, then there is definitely going to be a chance of damage, breakage, etc. So it's very important that when we are designing the implant, we need to get it designed with people who understand the medical designing and 3D printing metal applications, because a lot of the design ideas are very important to know whether or not it can be 3D printed. So it's important to take that thing into consideration. And all the tests, if they're load bearing implants, you need to do all the tests with respect to the bone and other structures around it, whether or not the implant that you've designed is capable of taking that load or not. So yeah, the life is not dependent on the material as such, but it's highly dependent on the design that you do.
Okay. Mr. Sanjeev Khanna wants to know what kind of ink is used in organ 3D printing?
So we call it bioink in the biomaterial in the biomaterials that you use. Now, this ink or biomaterial could be, the bioink or biomaterial could be different materials depending on what kind of a cell structure you're planning to, or what kind of a tissue structure you're planning to create along with it. So generally this hydrogel is majorly a water-based substance, as you can read over there, but it could be infused with a lot of other growth factors. It could be infused with, say, hydroxyapatite because it gives you strength, but it majorly depends on the kind of cell structure or the tissue structure that you're trying to create. Again, I'm happy to pass on more information on this if you all would like. I have loads of research papers that I can pass on, but this is a very generic. I will not be able to pinpoint on one particular material that you can use on everything. It all depends on the kind of tissue structure that you are working on.
Okay. So the next one is, what is the work you are doing to support in the fight against COVID? Mask, PPE, or something else?
Oh yes, I did not include that in this particular presentation, but if you give me a minute, I can just switch the screen and show you something.
Yeah.
Just a second. So how can I, Asta, how do I switch to another screen?
You just open the screen, whatever you want to, display.
Okay, no, okay, I found it. Okay. I guess you guys can you see this face shield kind PPT shown over here?
Yeah, that's
Yeah. So basically, this is the product that we started with for COVID-19. A face shield is basically a physical barrier that you place on your face, which covers your forehead, eyes, nose, mouth, neck, and your ears. This is what we started off with, providing to doctors, to nurses, to the other hospital staff, to police officials, to bank officials, and to basically delivery guys. Now, these face shields are reusable, so they constantly don't have to keep coming in, they don't have to use it as a one time thing. This face shield will protect you against spattering of any kind of if anyone sneezes around you or coughs around you, then it'll protect you from those droplets. And of course, it will stop you from touching your face again and again, because one of the major ways in which this virus spreads is by you touching on a surface which could have the droplets of the virus, and then you touching on the face anywhere near your nose or mouth. So it protects from that. And this is, yes, the product. This is a design that we made in-house as well. And this is what we are providing. Apart from this, we are also working side by side on PPE kits. We are also working side by side on face masks, on protective eye goggles. And soon, say maybe in a day or two, we should be out with those products as well. As of now, we are on face shields and PPE kits.
Okay. So will 3D printing replace organ transplantation in the future?
Replacing is a very strong word to use, but I mean, you will still have, I mean, there are people who have died and who have opted for organ donation. So yes, those are also the kinds of organ donations that you will see. But with 3D printing, if we are capable of making organs, which is still quite a way, I mean, we are still very far from that reality, but it is definitely a possibility. So if at some point in time in the future we are able to come up with 3D printed organs, it will definitely help reduce the need of organ donors who are from other channels, and it will help bring the balance of the need and the supply. So that's what I think our eventual aim should also be, that maybe not use the word replace, but use the word of reducing the gap between the demand and supply.
Yeah. So the next one says, while the future looks promising from a technical and scientific perspective, it's far from clear how bioprinting and its products will be regulated. Such uncertainty can be problematic for manufacturers and patients alike and could prevent bioprinting from living up to its promise. What is your take on this?
Absolutely. There are a million ethical issues with bioprinting. I mean, if you are saying that you can make you can make an organ in a lab, then what extent can you go to make it illegal? Or what extent, if anything gets damaged over there are different ethical issues that come around with this. But that being said, is this really something that should stop us from working on it or from researching on it? If we are able to, I mean, with a new product, you can always regulate it well, even though it might take longer to get the regulations right and to enforce them. But I definitely believe that it is not something that should be, that should stop someone from researching in these fields. It is definitely worth giving it a shot, no matter how stringent the regulations become. In fact, I am pro stringent regulations, but alongside, research has to go on.
So the next one is, can it be useful to treat any developmental defects?
By developmental defects, do we mean neonatal defects or?
Yes, I think that's what the user wants to say.
Yeah, so in neonates and prenates, we have seen, I mean, we are working, I mean, we've not exactly gotten how the right answer for this, but we have tried working on echo scans, wherein with the help of, like for an example of spina bifida, we tried getting an echo scan to see if we can recreate the spine and help the surgeon or the surgeon to try and guide the surgery in a particular way. I would not say that it is very successful as of today. The kind of echo scans that we get, the quality of the scans, the resolution that basically 3D printing requires, the technology of the echo scans is not there yet. Plus, there are restrictions in terms of your cone, your region of view. You get a conical structure in an echo, and it only gives you a single perspective. It doesn't give you all the three-dimensional views that you require, like how a CT or an MRI gives you an axial, sagittal, and coronal. So there is work happening, but I would say it is research at best. I would not say that it is clinically proven and that you should definitely go ahead and do it. Unless and until we don't have proven data, I would not suggest that on a very mass level adoption.
Yeah. So are there any regulatory approval issues or framework currently from ICMR or any other body?
In terms of customization and in terms of that customization for a product, no. There are guidelines, yes, that you should follow so that you ensure that you give the right kind of products out. You have an ISO certification that showing that the design procedure that you are following or the protocols that you are following are correct, and you're documenting everything so that later if something does go wrong, you can track back to it. So as long as your design procedure, and this design procedure can change from company to company or from designer to designer as well. So within a company, as long as you have your ISO procedure set, you are good to go with providing these customized products, because it's very difficult to get an approval for a product which changes every single time. So you get your design procedures approved, you get your printer procedures approved, you get your materials approved in terms of your ISO, and you should be good to go with your entire end-to-end procedure.
Okay. So the next one is from Mr. Amit Chaudhary. When we will be able to print arteries and heart valves?
As I said, it is still very far into the future. If you were to ask me, on my personal opinion, we are a minimum of 5 to 6 years away from getting any positive success, and post that at least another 7 to 8 years in addition to get all the regulatory approvals for that. So in my opinion, and maybe I could be held wrong later with more advancements or whatever, but from what I know today, another 15 years easily till you can get something commercially available out in the market. That being said, there are a lot of research organizations working on arteries. I will not disregard that fact. There are a lot of research organizations working on valves. It's one of the images also that I've shown in the presentation. But it is not close to being functional. Structurally, yes, it's not that difficult to get something structurally, but it needs to function as your actual anatomy. So getting a success in being able to make it functional, we are still at least 5 years away till we can see even some success in that.
Okay, so the next one comes from Mr. Ravi Gupta. I am using this technology for mandible reconstruction in cancer patients as surgical guide and templates to cut and bend fibula bone of leg, now trying to work on a biocompatible material. How can I contact you?
Oh, absolutely. We'd love to discuss this thing. I will just put my contact page again. I hope you can see my contact details here. It mentions my email ID, our website, and my phone number, which you can reach me on. So we'd absolutely love to discuss this project with you.
Okay, the next one is, what is the financial implication for the patient for this technology? Can you give a broad range?
Right, of course. As it was mentioned earlier, that the applications really dominate the kind of materials that you're using, the kind of 3D printers that you're using, or just in general how complex the data is to design. Sometimes a design could be finished in half an hour. Sometimes, like that neck and chest model, it took us 2 days to design, 2 to 3 days to design. So considering all of these different variables, and of course, we do have standard ranges for things like these now after 5 years of experience. But like say, for example, a mandible model, which is a bone with a tumor on it, would cost somewhere as close to 5,000 to 6,000 rupees. If you are looking at some really, really complex models of the heart or of of some larger bone tumors, it could go up to 30,000 rupees. And then it just depends on what anatomies you're looking at. There is no limit to the surgical simulation that you can do. But like the implants could cost anywhere between 50,000 to 2 lakh rupees. So you can take an ideal range of say a minimum of 5,000 bucks to get a good accurate, anatomically accurate design, and somewhere around 2 lakhs 3 lakhs for say a hip 3D printed implant. So this is a very average range that I can give you. Generally, this it does go on the patient, because as of right now, 3D printing of any kind of product from the company does not go under insurance. Some insurance companies do provide it, some don't. There is no short answer to whether an insurance company will consider 3D printing as under their insurance schemes. But what we have seen is that when it gets built through the hospital, insurance tends to cover it. So that is one way of reducing the burden on the patient and actually utilize the technology for the patient's benefit.
Okay. So the next one is, are there any training courses to learn 3D printing? And if yes, what all institutes would that be?
3D printing, yes. 3D printing, a lot of institutes are giving you. You get it in COEP Pune, you have it in VNIT down south, you have it in Sastra University, you have it in a couple more. NIT. And I think 2 more have come up with those courses. I can pass on their information. But again, these are generic 3D printing courses which teach you about the design aspects, which teach you about the 3D printing aspects. But if you want to learn specifically only about medical 3D printing, that's not a course there out there. But if you want to learn only about 3D printing in general as a course, as a diploma course for a year or 2 years, then these colleges that I mentioned do provide the courses.
Okay. Abhishek wants to know, can we make orthodontic metal appliance with 3D printing?
Yes, orthodontics, as in we see chrome cobalt being used very commonly for the dental applications. And if you're looking at implants for, I don't think you were asking about that, but in case if you're looking at implants for mandibular or maxillary reconstructions, then titanium is also a material that is being used. So yes, you have options for both in metal, chrome cobalt, as well as titanium.
Okay. So someone wants to know, what tools do you use to design 3D modeling?
Yeah, so as of right now, we are using Materialize, the Mimic software that they have. It is an FDA and a CE approved software from their end. So we are ensured at our end that all the data that we are putting it, and with, of course, our design expertise, the kind of data that we bring out, we are ensured that we are anatomically correct. Apart from that, we are using Magix again from them for our printers, for file fixing and everything. And some open source softwares like Meshmixer or Meshmixer, some open source softwares to get some basic work done here and there if we want to make any changes. But that's barely 1 to 2% of our entire work. Most of our work goes on the Materialize Mimic software.
Okay. So this one comes as, do you have any tie-ups with CT MRI doctors where a neurologist can get a better idea of the tumor?
So we did have such a setup initially. We had it with one of the leading chains here in Bombay, one of the leading radiology chains in Bombay. As of now, we are connected to the radiologists themselves. It's not a tie-up with the CT MRI Diagnostic Center. But that being said, we are setting up a lot of micro labs within hospitals. So we have a micro lab within Max Hospital. There are 2 more micro labs coming up. I mean, now I'm a little confused about when they will happen because of the situation as of today. But there are 2 more hospital tie-ups that we have, wherein within the radiology center of that hospital, we have set up a small micro lab. It has a 3D printer, it has our designer with the software. So you get immediate access to the designer, to the software. The designer can quickly convert your scan to a 3D model and show you, so you can go ahead and do your planning on that, or you can even report on that model for that matter, for that fact. Or you can use a combination of your 2D CT scan or MRI scan along with a 3D model to write a final report as a radiologist. So yes, these options are available. Nothing is stopping us from tying up with more radiology labs and providing them with these services if they want to set it up at their place or take our help. Nothing stops us from that. Just that to answer that question, as of now, we are more inside the hospital than inside a radiology, standalone radiology diagnostic center.
Yeah, so Firoza, before we move to the next question, which would be the last question,
Yeah.
the audiences are requesting if you can flash your contact details.
Can you not see my screen? Oh, it's paused. Okay, okay. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Just a second. I thought it was showing it. Now, can you see my contact details?
Yes, yes, it's
Yeah.
clearly visible now. Okay, so we'll take last two questions. So the second last comes from Abhishek. He's asking, who develops the ink that you spoke about?
Good question. So now there are two entities that we have to look at over here. One would be either a research center or one would be a company. Now this research center could be a standalone research center or it could be within a education institute. And the company, of course, is a standalone company or incubated within an education institute. So these are the kinds of places where you will get, again, interdisciplinary education backgrounds. You will have polymer engineers, you will have chemical engineers, you will have mechanical engineers who can ensure that the bioink that you're creating can be 3D printed smoothly without any problems. So ideally, these are the places where you will generally see more bioink development. If it's a company, mostly they would have their own bioprinter and they are supplying bioinks along with it. If it's a research institution, then they are probably working on a particular cell type, and because of which they are making their own bioinks to support that cell type. So depends again what your final application or intention is to do with that bioink. But yeah, these are the different arenas where you can find bioink development.
Okay, so the last one is replacement of joint cartilage possible?
Commercially, no, it's not available yet. There are, as I mentioned, some research institutes and companies who are working on cartilage development. They have seen some success on it on animal trials. They are yet to go into human trials. So if you're asking if it's commercially available as of today, then no, it is not. But it will actually come in the same time that bone biomaterials will come with. So cartilage and bone and skin, all of these you will see sometime in the next 5 years, you will see them commercially available.
Okay, thank you, Firoza. So we
We
are getting many compliments in our chat box. People are, congratulating you that at a young age, you are so passionate and, you have found your vision and you are doing so much. So that is really, appreciative. And the entire team is really impressed. I must congratulate you. And, you are so young and yet so passionate. That's so lovely.
But
So,
again, I'd like to reiterate, this would not have been possible without doctors giving us that guidance and coming up with problems that we can solve. So no matter, I would still again urge once again that please reach out. Let's discuss research ideas. Let's discuss more complex things that we can solve, and we'll try and solve your problems with your guidance. So yeah, I'd just like to end on that note.
thank you so much.
Thank you, Asta and Dr. Reddy's also for giving me this opportunity to speak here.
Yes, thank you. So with this, on behalf of Dr. Reddy's, I thank our speaker, Ms. Firoza, and all the participants for taking time out. Do what you can, where you are, with what you have. For where there is a will, there is a way. We leave you here with this thought and wish your day is filled of positivity and good health, because good health can't wait. Jai Hind.